How does one know when they are growing? I say that you will know when you are growing when you begin to feel disgust at things you once took great delight in. When you realize that shame isn't some abstract idea that we've had thrusted upon us, but that it is in fact the law of God, written upon our hearts, screaming out and begging to be heard. Now, this isn't to say that all shame is sacred. We have certainly come out of an age that festered in guilt, in which people were mocked for unimaginably innocent things. But that's not what shame is. True shame is nothing more than consciousness, a divine guilt that corrects our course when we find ourselves being dragged by unseen tides towards dark waters, waters that call to us, at least a part of us, waters that look mysterious and inviting, but that we ultimately know are home to things that would gladly drag us under, never to be seen again. If we are taught shame, then why do we feel it so deeply within our bones before we have ever been informed of the laws of man? Why do we instinctively know that to harm a child's body is to harm our very souls? I would argue that this definition of shame we've been taught, one of repression and control, is not just untrue, but it is an inversion of the truth, a bastardization of its purpose. For shame does not exist to restrain us, it exists to free us, to liberate us from the chains of the devil wrapped around our ankles and our necks, from the filth that we are exposed to from childhood. There are some things in this world that we should feel deeply ashamed to consume, to witness, to take part in, and that is why shame exists. To hold our conscience accountable for the things that we have no business dirtying our souls with. So you might want to live in a plastic world made of dead pixels, where all of your worst qualities are not only rewarded, but continuously praised. I do not. Live your truth, they say. For the last 100 years, we've been bombarded with this statement, this slogan, this religion, made up entirely of a call to individuality, but lacking of substance. For I say, what of morality? I say, what remains of common human decency, love for our fellow man, our brothers, our sisters, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters? We have done away with such things. We have discarded the very things that made us human and exchanged them for mere baubles. Live your truth, they say. But what of the truth? What if my truth leads me astray? What if my truth says that morality is subjective and therefore my truth declares that I have the right to take innocent life? How have we allowed ourselves to be sold this perverted form of an already heretical act? Idol worship, in which the thing of which we give false worship to is ourselves. Taking pride in our sexual perversions, convincing ourselves that living entirely for whatever makes us feel good is some kind of noble act. You spend your entire life as a cog in the machine, never seeking, never searching, but now that you've taken acid a couple of times, or perhaps attended an ayahuasca ceremony or two, you think you understand the game. You think that you understand God. Perhaps even you've come to the great realization that you in fact are God. For someone whose ego has supposedly been crushed and died a certain death 10 times over, you sound awfully presumptuous. More so, you sound unbearably ignorant. But isn't that just the human condition? To be on your knees begging for God's help, and then as soon as you receive it, not a second after, to blabber on about how you did it all yourself and immediately forget your God, who was there by your side when all else failed, and turned their face from you. The cheek of it. To think that we, a band of lost children that have completely turned our back on our Creator, our marriages, our children, our call to charity, and all in exchange for secularism, materialism, nihilism. Yes, we, that very same we, that sit idly by, binge-watching shows on Netflix whilst an entire people is quietly eradicated. We somehow know more about the meaning of life than a man of the cloth who has devoted his entire existence to listening, donated his time to understanding words that must be more than heard to be truly understood. We have become so self-obsessed that we actually believe that to seek truth in one wiser, older, more experienced, or in some kind of a position of authority is a cowardly, pro-authoritarian act, as if the passing of knowledge from the old to the young isn't the very reason we are here today. I won't be told what to do, you say proudly. Okay, and how's that going for you? The most ironic thing about that bold, brave statement is that it is untrue as it is idiotic, because many of you, in fact all of you, let someone or something tell you what to do, how to feel and think every single day. For we are beings of experience and exposure. What we see, we eventually become. And if you have turned your back on God, what are you facing now? Hollywood movies starring self-obsessed monsters that commit evil acts upon innocent lives for their amusement. Music stars that you only hear because they are played on the radio and you want to listen to what everybody else listens to. You want to fit in. Hell, you'll even let an advert tell you how to think and what to feel. Perhaps a woman in a caravan full of crystals and incense. A deck of cards. But hey, at least you're not being taken for a fool by those God-believing maniacs, right? You'll heed the word of anyone and anything but your Creator. And you'll do so for one simple reason. You are terrified. You are terrified to ask Him a question because you might just get a real answer. An answer that you're afraid to hear. An answer that asks you to do something that doesn't stroke your ego or tell you how perfect you are. An answer that requires a response. An answer that makes you uncomfortable. Because real spirituality isn't to be found in a deck of tarot cards and a woman spouting positive affirmations. True spirituality is submission. And my, how we hate that word, and goodness, how we are paying for the cost of our ignorant hatred. Hatred of what we do not understand. To love is to do what you must, no matter how hard it might be. The truth is not to be found in another person just as flawed and fractured as you. No. No matter how much money you pay them to stroke the embers of your ego, know this. Many lost souls will choose to work on others simply because it is the most noble seeming reason to avoid working on themselves. The world has taught you to distrust in God and to instead trust in the machine that they have tried their very best to replace God with. To that I say this. You are God's children. To the machine you are nothing more than nameless, soulless sustenance. So the question you must ask yourself is this. Do you wish to be a friend to the God that loved you and made you, or food for those that hate Him? Submission is only weakness when you bow your head to tyrants, and I refuse to be the devil's dinner.